Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for your interest in learning more about TiGenix. I have to say that I'm mostly the last of the day, and also I have a perfect Italian English, so I hope that I will keep you awake. And I try to be very fast and kind of concentrate on the very advanced asset we have currently in phase 3. So the company is a quoted company, so I will make some forward-looking statements, and let me just give some facts. These are facts. So basically, we're based headquartered in Leuven in Belgium. We have operations in Madrid. We have approximately 50 employees, so a very dedicated team of people. Traded in New York Stock Exchange in Brussels. Approximately a market cap it's around $100 million. We have the reference shareholders, Grifols and Novartis, holding 26% of the shares, and the liquidity of 74% of free float, of which, again, half of it is in the hands of institutional investors. And we have 6 analysts covering the stock, of which 2 are independent, 2 are US-based, and a solid balance sheet of 22 million, which will bring the company to the next milestone, which is 601 results. So as I'm introducing 601, what is 601? Well, we have, here is the pipeline. We have, the first row, which is actually the phase 3. It's a suspension of cell cells, adipose-derived stem cells, which we inject locally in what is called the complex perianal fistulas, and I will explain briefly what is that. It's an orphan drug, designated drug for Europe, and apart from the local injection, we are also working on other way of administering the cells, going back on the concept that we really understand that there is a match between the way we administer the cells and the indication, and which is key to understand is the property of the cells and the inflammatory properties of the cells. So in terms of intravenous, we're working on, again, the approach is allogeneic. It's IV in early rheumatoid arthritis and severe sepsis. And finally, 621 is intralymphatic injection of the cells for autoimmune disorders. We're currently actually putting this program on hold to concentrate on the phase 3. And finally, Chondrocelect, which is a characterized autologous chondrocytes for cartilage lesion. We have actually out-licensed the product, very recently announced it to Sobi, Swedish orphan, by Vitrum, and the concept there, perhaps important to know, is that it was the first cell therapy product in Europe to be approved. So in a way, we would like to flag here that we have done it. We've done it before, have a product in the market, and reach the path to approval. It's not an easy task, especially for a company of our size. We've done it before. So when we move to the most advanced asset we have, what is actually a perianal fistula? Very briefly, well, it's a very severe complication of Crohn patients. The fistula, as a matter of fact, it's like a tunnel. It's a wound, and the problem with fistula is they can be very, very tough and very debilitating for patients, because you have basically 80% of 12% of Crohn, which develop these complex fistulas, which are basically affecting perhaps the most important things to think about is the area of the anal sphincters. They're multiple tracts. They are recurrent. And so there's a whole concept around quality of life, which is very impacting for these patients. There is pain, there is basically depression, there's epithelial carcinoma. So it's a very debilitating condition, and there are roughly 100,000 Crohn patients which suffer from complex perianal fistula every year. So how are those patients treated today? Well, there's everything, a lot of things that can be thrown to those patients, so to say, but very, very few of them, which actually shows that there is, quality of life improvement and release, those patients from these very tough conditions. So the promoting the healing is something which doesn't happen. So what basically the cycling that goes these patients through are antibiotics first. They have then immunosuppressants that they don't work actually. So they end up in anti-TNF. Anti-TNF, basically Remicade, is the one that has the indication of perianal fistulas. And the problem there is that remission is very low. They have to be kept in biological for a long period of time. And at the end, the concern is actually the safety of the patients. So they may end up on relapse after 1 year, and on top, a lot of tox consequences. So what happened left? Then it's another biologics, which is basically Humira. And then finally, though, normally surgeons tend to avoid it because it affects the perianal area, which are the sphincters, it's surgery. But surgery, 1/3 of the patients, they end up with incontinence. So it's a very, you basically end up with something which is even worse. So nothing really worked. And on top, if you look at the potential market, the concept, despite being an orphan drug, the concept of, this recurrency and the amount of patients which suffer from this disease is quite amazing. So if you consider the number of patients that, every year go through this disease, and what really matters is what is there, which is nothing. We are estimating roughly 75,000 patients every year, of which 1/3 could be, our potential market share. And therefore, if you look at, we've recently conducted a very intensive market research with the interviews with key opinion leaders and payers, which this is a very important component that we have, experienced ourselves with Chondrocelect. The potential market can go up to, and it's a preliminary estimate, but $750 million a year. So when actually look at, okay, that's the market, that's what you want to do, but what data do you have? Well, this is the result of 14 years of study, and has been a long way. We started with an autologous product, and in 2009 we shifted into an allogeneic version of that product, and we conducted several very robust studies. Specifically, you will see the phase 3 hand in hand with the regulatory authority. The concept indeed that I've heard a lot of time during the day today is that definitely, regulatory authority and payer at the end have a say during your clinical development. And so the company, what has done since the very inception, is to be sure that, every step was in accordance, and this was the first ever study allogeneic in patients, so first in human. We have always done it with regulatory authority. That has been actually very key. So in this case, it was very severe and compromised Crohn patients, which were refractory to, again, antibiotics, immunosuppressants, and anti-TNF. The concept was to stop the anti-TNF, have a wash-up period of 8 weeks, and have just, the injection, the dose, and wait to see, at week 12 and week 24. So kind of 6 months data, if there was any relapse, if there was any actually, we started with closure and then any relapse. And the results, of course, this was not powered for efficacy, were pretty consistent and amazing with what we have actually seen before in the animals, which was basically safety-wise, very safe profile, only 2 serious adverse events, which was basically very much related to the underlying disease, which is fever and perianal abscess. But most important, and it's a very dense slide, if you start from the left to the right, the efficacy. So the first graph for us was very, very important because this is basically what Humira is about. It's stopping the drainage of the fistula. So not closing, but stopping the draining. So we had, all in all, 70% of the patients which were treated with their fistula stopping draining. Then we have mostly, the central one is the very important one, 56% at 24 weeks, complete closure of the treats. And the last one, again, for us, perhaps a little difficult to read, but very, very, very interesting. There we were counting the total number of fistula, both treated and non-treated. And this is a very important scenario here because basically what we saw is no spontaneous healing in the fistula not treated. So the best control was the same patient, and we were looking at comparing the fistula treated and non-treated, if there were any of the non-treated which could eventually heal. And I will come back on this point, which was very relevant. I will actually, for the sake of time, skip this one, but just for you to know that we actually had an IIT on rectovaginal fistula, which is even a more complex indication. And finally, this is the phase 3 ongoing. We announced just the completion of the recruitment, so we expect data Q3 2015, so not far from here. More than 278 patients recruited, 51 sites, 8 countries. Primary endpoint is remission at 24 weeks. But, again, hand in hand with the regulatory authority, we knew that we had to show, long persistence of closure. So we're looking also secondary endpoint at response time. So how long the patient actually cure, so close the fistula at 24 weeks. So you will see the statistical plan. And the most important things as well is the maintenance of the closure, and that is specifically for payers. So you want to really be sure that they have data that support risk-benefit wise a product that can have a higher price but a lower risk and higher benefit. So in terms of the study, again, totally in the hands of, the idea of having the EMA supporting the protocol, we went there, we asked what was the best, kind of criteria to look at. And the statistical plan has been designed in such a way that we will have data at week 6, 12, 18, 24, and secondary at week 52, so 1 year. So a lot of point, and at the end of the day, data that will show and be shown for the payers as well. So statistical power of 80% with a p-value of 0.025. So we really believe that with a one study, which is this one, phase 3, we will be able to file for marketing if positive. And finally, we have just completed the recruitment, and we're looking at, that is the point of spontaneous healing of 25 different papers, and the normal literature talk about 15%. 25 means a 40% efficacy, what we need to find. And you've seen historically our data is 56, so I'm quite confident that things, can always get the other way, but should go the right way this time. In terms of US, because I've been asked several times, so what are you doing there? Well, we had a very positive Type B meeting at the end of last year. I think there, again, the concept was to check the adequacy of the preclinical package, as well the acceptability of the European data for filing in US, and the agreement on some key parameters. The idea is to go for a US-based trial. Would be a pivotal one, and that is basically the idea to use the European data to support the BLA in US. So with just one trial there, we should be able to file for registration if positive. So we're talking of launching in Europe in 2017, so not that far from now. It's a nice coincidence with other that I've heard around this time. And in terms of, development in US, where are we? We have progressed quite significantly. We have a scientific advisory board in place with 6 of the most reputable clinicians in US, which are endorsing our protocol. We will submit the SPA by the end of the year, and we're now in negotiation with the CMO to start the technology transfer very soon next year. And the IND will be filed just after the technology transfer. And with that, very few points on actually TiGenix that I would like, to be able to really have you in your mind about us. So we have, 14 years of experience that brought us into a very advanced asset, phase 3 asset, which is, due to date results in a very limited time. We have our US path now very clear, what we need to do and when we need and with whom. We have a very valuable pipeline, so not only 601, but other 2 products in development. The most important, or one of the most important concept that I've heard as well was the manufacturing capabilities and the reproducibility of the process. So we have an established uniform manufacturing capabilities shown in different time and different trials, and in agreement with the regulatory authority as well. We have on top our proprietary technology, and finally, though licensed now, a product which has been commercialized in the last 3 years, showing that we are not only able to develop a cell therapy product, but also to get registration, to have marketing approval, and finally to commercialize them. So we have the a bit of everything, I would say, but we have touched all the different points of the value chain. And with that, if there's any interest in having some interaction, I will be pleased to attend you. Thank you so much, and thank you.